the rebirth of a soul. The supple black leather of my father's Mercedes felt like a sheath of ice against my skin, a stark contrast to the simmering warmth of my own resolve. I sat alone in the cavernous silence of the car, a queen exiled from her own castle, watching the world move through a tinted glass veil. Outside, the glittering elite of San Francisco floated towards the grand, ornate entrance of Lou Blanc, the city's most exclusive restaurant. Their laughter was a silent, distant symphony, their diamonds catching the light like frozen stars. Just 20 minutes ago, I had been part of that procession, the hem of my Chanel dress a garment that cost more than the average person's yearly solace whispering against the pavement. But I was not banished over a mere faux pas or a spilled glass of wine. No, my transgression was far more profound. I was exiled for the crime of being myself. Wait in the car, my father had hissed, his voice a low, venomous whisper meant for my ears alone. His grip on my arm was not paternal, but proprietary, the grip of a man securing a volatile asset. Alexandra, we need these investors. We cannot risk anything anything going wrong tonight. And by anything, he meant me. Alexandra Mitchell, the family's beautifully wrapped paradox, the daughter who had been given the keys to a gilded kingdom and had, instead, chosen to walk into the unknown wilderness to find her own soul. A phase, my mother had christened it, her voice dripping with a pity so cold it could frost glass. She come crawling back when reality bites, my brother, Marcus, had sneered, his confidence as unshakable as the family's stock portfolio. They had no idea that reality had not bitten me. I had tamed it. A soft chime broke the silence. My phone screen illuminated, casting a bluish glow on my face. 3 consecutive texts from my younger sister, Diana, each one a tiny, precise dagger. How could you? You've humiliated us in front of everyone. The Kingstons are here. Dad is fighting for the firm's life, and you're off in your own selfish world, as usual. When will you ever grow up? The last message didn't sting. It evoked a slow, deep smile. If only they knew. I thought, the irony tasting like the finest wine. If only they had the faintest clue who truly holds the reins of Kingston. Enterprises now? 5 years. It had been 5 years since I had walked out of the hallowed halls of Mitchell Investment Group, the prodigal daughter refusing her birthright. I didn't slam doors. I simply closed them behind me, the echo of my departure swallowed by the thick Persian rugs. With a trust fund, significantly smaller than my siblings, but carefully calculated, appeasement I had stepped into the void. My father called it a gambler's folly. I knew it was an architect's blueprint. My phone chimed again, a different, more serene tone reserved for one contact. My executive assistant, Elena. The final acquisition papers for Kingston Enterprises are prepared and awaiting your signature. The board convenes in 30 minutes for the official vote. Your presence is requested. Where shall I tell them you are? A calmness, profound and absolute, settled over me. This was the moment. The culmination of countless sleepless nights, of risks that would have given my father a heart attack, of a vision they had all dismissed as a cute little project. I met my own gaze in the rearview mirror. My eyes, once told they were too dreamy, too soft for the cutthroat world of finance, now held the steady, unyielding glint of polished steel. My father had a favorite mantra. In business, timing is everything. He was about to discover just how exquisite my timing had become. I opened the car door, the cool San Francisco air of baptism on my skin. I straightened the lines of my dress, a uniform as potent as any business suit. I was not the scolded teenager returning to beg forgiveness. I was the CEO arriving to claim her throne. The Mater de Pierre. A man who had known me since I was a child trailing behind my parents, recognized me instantly. His professional mask slipped for a fraction of a second, revealing genuine surprise. Miss Mitchell, a pleasure, as always. Your usual table by the window. Not tonight. Pierre, I said, my voice calm, carrying an unfamiliar authority that made his eyebrows twitch. I believe my family is dining with the Kingston party. I joined them. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly. The Mitchell family was hosting the Kingstons for a desperate salvage operation. My unannounced arrival was a seismic event in this microcosm of high society. Of course, madame, he recovered swiftly, his demeanor shifting to one of deep respect. Right this way. He led me through the opulent dining room, a sea of needed conversations and clinking crystal. As we approached the private dining chamber, the Versailles room, I could hear the familiar cadence of my father's voice. It was his closing voice, smooth, confident, laced with a charm that could disarm billionaires. ... And you see, Richard Kingston Enterprises would benefit immensely from her multi-generational expertise, he was saying. The sound of wine swirling in a glass punctuating his sentence. Mitchell Investment Group has a legacy of stability. We don't chase trends. We build empires. I paused outside the door, taking one last, deep, centering breath. This was the threshold between my past and my future. I placed a hand on the rich, dark wood and pushed. The door swung open, and the scene inside froze, a perfect, silent tableau of astonishment. My father was caught mid-gesture, his wine glass suspended in the air. My mother, a vision in couture, had her perfectly curated smile slip, revealing the shock beneath. Diana and Marcus sat opposite, their faces a comical mixture of horror and disbelief, as if they just witnessed the laws of physics fail. And then there was Richard Kingston Sr., the formidable CEO of Kingston Enterprises. His reaction was the one that shattered the silence. He rose from his chair, not with confusion, but with a dawning, profound recognition. He dipped his head in a gesture of deep respect. Madame President, he said, his voice resonating through the still room. I had no idea this was your family. The silence that followed was thicker than the restaurant's rarest truffle. You could have heard a diamond drop. Richard, I nodded, my gait steady and sure as I walked to the one empty seat at the head of the long, polished table, my father's customary throne. I hope I'm not interrupting anything crucial. Alexandra, my father's voice was a strained wire ready to snap. What is the meaning of this? Joining my family for dinner, I replied smoothly, lowering myself into the chair. The leather sighed beneath me, accepting my weight. And it would seem, meeting with my senior investment officer. The board convened shortly. Does it not, Richard? Your CEO. Marcus choked, sputtering a mouthful of expensive Bordeaux. What in God's name are you talking about? Richard Kingston Sr. looked from my apoplectic family back to me, the full picture assembling in his mind. A slow, knowing smile touched his lips. They don't know, he stated, more to himself than to me. Know what? My mother's voice was sharp, the kind of tone she used before delivering a devastatingly polite insult. Without breaking eye contact with my father, I reached into my Hermes Birkin bag and retrieved a slender, black folder. I slid it across the gleaming mahogany, the sound a soft whisper in the tense room. It came to a stop directly in front of his plate. The final acquisition papers, I said, my voice clear and calm. All that remains is your signature, Richard, to make it official. Of course, Madame President, he said without a moment's hesitation, reaching for his Mont Blanc pen. Stop! My father's hand slammed down on the folder, the impact rattling the fine china. The genteel facade of the evening lay in shards around us. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a confusion that was rapidly curdling into anger. What is this? Explain yourself, Alexandra. This, I said, leaning back in my chair. The picture of composure is business, father. The one language you taught me to speak fluently. Though, I admit, I learned to speak a slightly more modern dialect. I let my gaze sweep over the faces of my family, my father, the titan who suddenly looked small, my mother, the socialite whose world was cracking, my siblings, the heirs who now seemed like relics. The story of how I came to be sitting here, I began. The story of how the daughter you dismissed now owns the company you're begging to save didn't start when I walked away from Mitchell Investment Group. It started long before that, in the shadows of your empire, listening, learning, and realizing that you were also busy admiring the walls you'd built, that you didn't see the world changing outside, the unraveling of a dynasty. The silence in the Versailles room was not merely an absence of sound. It was a physical presence, thick and heavy, pressing down on the polished mahogany table like an invisible shroud. I could hear the delicate, frantic ticking of my mother's diamond-encrusted watch, a tiny, mechanical heartbeat counting down the end of their world as they knew it. All eyes were frozen on me, a mosaic of disbelief, simmering anger, and the slow, dawning horror of comprehension. The cold, supple leather of the chair beneath me, my father's throne, felt no longer like a place of banishment, but like a seat of power that had, after a long and patient wait, finally recognized its rightful queen. You speak of modern dialects, my father finally said, his voice a low, controlled thunder that vibrated through the fine crystal. The charming facade had evaporated, leaving behind the raw steel of a man whose entire reality was being appended. But this theatrical display is nothing but a charade. What foolish game are you playing, Alexandra? Before my lips could part to form a reply, Richard Kingston Sr. spoke, his voice, calm and resonant, carried a weight of respect so genuine it made my family visibly flinch, as if touched by something holy and profane at once. This is no game, Charles, he said, his gaze steady on my father. I assure you, what your daughter says is the unvarnished truth. She has been the silent majority shareholder and strategic architect behind Kingston Enterprises for the past 6 months. The algorithmic trading systems and AI-driven market predictions she implemented have increased our market capitalization by 300%. We are not here tonight to be saved by Mitchell Investment Group. He paused, letting the words hang in the air like a verdict. We are here to formally finalize our transition into the AM Holdings portfolio. We are here to answer to our new president. The air left my mother's lungs in a soft, shuddering gasp. Her hand, adorned with a flawless emerald, trembled as she reached for her water glass, the ice cubes clinking a nervous rhythm. I don't understand, she whispered, her voice stripped of its usual social grace, revealing the raw confusion beneath. How could you? When did you? Where did you find the capital? Her words trailed off, the perfect, icy composure she wore like a second's skin finally cracking, revealing the fragile woman underneath. It began not with capital. Mother, I said, my voice softer than hers, yet it carried across the table with the clarity of a bell, demanding to be heard. It began with listening. While everyone at these very dinner parties was so busy talking about maintaining traditions, about preserving legacies, about the tried and true ways, I was hearing the whispers of change on the wind, the quiet, relentless revolution of technology that was preparing to redefine our entire world. You were all admiring the beautifully crafted walls of your fortress, while I was watching the tides rise outside. Marcus found his voice, a splinter of its usual arrogance. So this is revenge for what? For not taking your little tech doodles seriously. This is your pathetic way of getting back at your family? I turned my gaze to him, feeling a pang of sorrow for the brother who had never seen me as an equal. Revenge, Marcus, is a small, petty flame that burns out quickly. It is the desire of those who have lost. I am not here because I lost anything. I am here because I won. I built. I created. This isn't about getting back at the past. It's about claiming the future that was always mine to build. My father had not taken his eyes off the acquisition papers. His hands, usually so steady when signing billion-dollar deals, now rested on the table, slightly unsteady. The confidence that had been his trademark seemed to have drained from him, leaving behind a shell of the titan I had known. AM Holdings, he murmured, the name tasting foreign on his tongue. We've been watching you. Everyone has. The phantom of the markets, the mysterious entity that was, outmaneuvering us at every turn. He finally lifted his eyes to meet mine, and in their depths, I saw the shattered fragments of his pride. It was you. All along, it was you. Yes, I said, the single word holding the weight of 5 years of struggle, of doubt, of unwavering conviction. I picked up my champagne flute, watching the tiny, effervescent bubbles race to the surface. A metaphor for my own relentless rise. I took a small, deliberate sip, the dry, complex taste of victory in itself. Now, I said, placing the glass back down with a soft, definitive click. Now, we discuss the future of Mitchell Investment Group. I let the statement hang there, allowing them to drown in its multiple meanings. It was a promise, a threat, and an olive branch, all twisted into one. They had come here to save their legacy, and instead, they had found it irrevocably merged with mine. The game was over. The real work was about to begin. The tides of change. Back in the Versailles room, I looked at Marcus, the ghost of that memory reflected in my eyes. Birthright. I repeated softly, the word feeling foreign on my tongue. A legacy isn't a museum piece to be kept under glass, Marcus. It's a living, breathing entity. It must evolve, or it will perish. And you ... I let my gaze sweep over all of them. You chose to build a museum. My father finally found his voice, though it was stripped of its usual command. How, Alexandra? He asked, his eyes pleading for an answer he could comprehend. How did you do all this ... alone? Another memory, this one from 3 years ago, surfaced a testament to the solitude and conviction of that journey. Flashback 3 years earlier. A small, sparse office in a nondescript building. A world away from the plush interiors of Mitchell Investment Group. The only light came from my laptop screen, displaying the devastating aftermath of my first major investment, promising quantum computing. STARTUP failing spectacularly. I had lost nearly 30% of my capital. The silence was deafening, the doubt a crushing weight. My phone had buzzed. It was Diana. Heard you're having a rough go of it. Dad says it's a lesson in humility. Maybe it's time to come home, Alex. We can always find a place for you here. The message was likely meant to be kind, but it felt like salt in the wound. I remember staring at the screen, tears of frustration and exhaustion welling up. Giving up would have been so easy. Returning to the gilded cage, accepting a subordinate role, and forever being the daughter who tried and failed. But I didn't. I took a deep, shuddering breath, wiped my tears, and went back to the screen. Failure was not an end. It was data. I began to analyze what went wrong with the cold, detached precision my father would have admired. That night, I pivoted my entire strategy, moving from hardware to the software that would power it. That failure became the foundation of the algorithmic trading system that would later become the core of AM Holdings. The morning after, a new reality. The first light of dawn painted the San Francisco skyline in hues of rose and gold, but the Mitchell household was shrouded in a gloom that no sun could penetrate. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse office in the newly renamed Mitchell Innovation Center, watching the city awaken. The fog curled gently beneath the Golden Gate Bridge like a soft, white blanket, a stark contrast to the storm that had ravaged my family the night before. My AI assistant, Arya, her voice a calm, melodic presence in the spacious room, broke the silence. Ms. Mitchell, you have 42 missed calls. The majority are from family members. There are also several urgent emails from the board of Mitchell Investment Group. The financial news networks are leading with the AM Holdings revelation. I took a slow sip of my black coffee, its bitter taste grounding me. Thank you, Arya. Let the calls go to voicemail for now. And pull up the latest due diligence reports on Mitchell Investment Group's asset portfolio. I want to see the full picture of what we're dealing with. Before the holographic display could materialize, Arya spoke again. Your brother, Marcus Mitchell, is in the main lobby. He is ... quite agitated. Security reports he is demanding to see you immediately. Shall I have him escorted out? I glanced at the security feed on my tablet. There he was, my impeccably polished brother, looking utterly unraveled. His suit was wrinkled, his tie askew, and his usually perfectly styled hair was a mess. He was pacing, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of pure desperation. A part of me, the sister who remembered building pillow forts with him, wanted to let him in to offer comfort. But the CO, the woman who had built an empire from scratch, knew that this was a pivotal moment. This was where the old dynamics either shattered forever or reasserted themselves. No, I said firmly, let him up. And Arya, project the 3-year comparative performance charts of MIG versus AM Holdings. I want them front and center. Minutes later, the doors to my office hissed open and Marcus stormed in, his eyes wild. He threw a folded financial newspaper onto my desk. The headline was in bold, black letters, Titan revealed. Alexandra Mitchell's AM Holdings swallows Kingston Enterprises. Is Mitchell Investment Group next? How long, Alexandra? He demanded, his voice cracking with a mixture of fury and exhaustion. How long have you been planning this? This ambush? Dad didn't sleep all night. The board is in a state of chaos. Half our clients are calling, asking if the rumors are true that you're planning to dismantle the firm out of spite. I gestured calmly to the chair opposite my desk. Sit down, Marcus. You look like you've been through a war. Don't you dare patronize me. He snapped, but he sank into the chair nonetheless, the fight seeming to drain out of him for a moment. I didn't answer his question directly. Instead, I waved a hand, and the air in front of us shimmered with light. The holographic displays I had requested sprang to life, showing streams of real-time market data, complex algorithmic flows, and the damning red line of Mitchell Investment Group's decline set against the vibrant, soaring green of AM Holdings. Look at the numbers, Marcus, I said, my voice soft but unwavering. Not the headlines, not the rumors, the data. Your client portfolio has been bleeding for 36 consecutive months. Your technology stack is a decade behind the curve. Your investment strategies are based on models that the rest of the world has already evolved beyond. We have a reputation. We have tradition, he retorted, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. Tradition, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. Tradition doesn't generate returns. Innovation does. While you and Dad were clinging to the tried and true, I was building the new and now. The world didn't stop turning because you decided to close your eyes to it. The air filled with shimmering nodes of light, each representing a different company, technology, or market under my umbrella. I explained how they interconnected, how data flowed between them, creating a synergistic ecosystem that was far greater than the sum of its parts. My siblings watched, mesmerized and overwhelmed. This was a language they didn't speak, a world they didn't understand. And for the first time, I saw not resentment in their eyes, but a dawning, desperate curiosity. We get it, okay? Marcus finally said, his voice drained of its earlier anger. You're a visionary. You're successful. You've made your point. So what do you want from us? To gloat, to watch us squirm. I looked at them, my brother and my sister, the two people I had competed with, fought with, and longed for approval from my entire life. I don't want you to squirm, Marcus, I said, my voice dropping to a more intimate, sincere tone. I want you to learn. The prodigal father. Before either of them could process my words, Arya's voice filled the room again, softer this time, as if sensing the delicate shift in the atmosphere. Miss Mitchell, your father is here. This was the moment I had both anticipated and dreaded. I took a deep, steadying breath. Let him in. The door opened and my father walked in. He looked like he had aged a decade in a single night. The commanding presence that usually preceded him was gone, replaced by a heavy, palpable weariness He was carrying a simple, old-fashioned cardboard box. His eyes, usually so sharp and assessing, scanned my office, taking in the breathtaking view. The cutting-edge technology, the undeniable evidence of a success he could no longer deny. He didn't look at Marcus or Diana. His gaze was fixed on me. Slowly, he walked to my desk and placed the box on it. It was filled with folders, printouts, and binders. I recognized them instantly. My proposals. Every single one. The ones from when I was a teenager. The ones from business school. The detailed modernization plans I had presented before I left. Your proposals, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I kept them all. The admission hung in the air, more powerful than any accusation or apology. He had kept them. All these years. Dead, I started, but he held up a hand to stop me. I was wrong, Alexandra. The words, spoken so quietly, echoed through the room with the force of a thunderclap. Marcus and Diana stared, utterly stunned. Our father never admitted he was wrong. I was so focused on preserving what my father built. He continued, his eyes glistening, that I became a caretaker of a museum instead of an architect of the future. I was so busy trying to force you all into the roles I had chosen for you that I couldn't see the potential right in front of. Emmy, his voice broke slightly. I couldn't see what you could become. Diana stood up, her face a mask of confusion. What are you saying, Dad? I'm saying ... double quotes. He took a deep, shuddering breath, turning to include all of us in his gaze. That Mitchell Investment Group doesn't need a caretaker. It needs a visionary. It needs Alexandra. He looked back at me, his expression one of surrender and, for the first time, respect. Not as an adversary, but as its leader. Marcus shot to his feet. What? But on the managing director. The succession plan was built for a world that no longer exists. My father cut him off, his voice regaining a sliver of its old authority. Look around you, Marcus. Your sister didn't just inherit a throne. She built her own kingdom from the ground up. She turned a modest trust fund into this. He gestured around the penthouse office. Meanwhile, our firm is hemorrhaging clients and relevance by the day. My pride, my stubbornness ... almost cost us everything. The room fell silent. The final pillar of the old regime had not been toppled by force, but had chosen to lay down its crown. I pressed a button on my desk, darkening the windows and activating the large main screen. A new presentation appeared, titled simply, The Mitchell Transformation. Let me show you the way forward, I said, my heart swelling with a complex mix of triumph, relief, and a profound, newfound compassion for my family. But understand, the path ahead requires more than just a change of leadership. It requires a change of heart from everyone in this room. I saw the fear in Marcus's eyes, the uncertainty in Diana's, and the weary acceptance in my father's. The battle was over. The real work, the work of healing and rebuilding, was finally beginning. The transformation begins. The silence in my office stretched, thick with unspoken emotions. My father's admission still hung in the air. I was wrong. Alexandra. Those 3 words had shattered a lifetime of family dynamics. Marcus looked like he'd been physically struck, while Diana's eyes glistened with etched tears. I pressed a button on my desk, and the walls came alive with light. This, I said softly, is not about taking over. It's about building together. Holographic displays showed real-time data streams from both companies. The struggling red lines of Mitchell Investment Group, intertwining with the vibrant green surges of AM Holdings. My conditions are non-negotiable, I continued, my voice firm yet compassionate. First, complete technological overhaul. Second, mandatory AI and blockchain training for every employee. Third, a merit-based promotion system that rewards innovation, not seniority. Marcus finally found his voice. You expect us to start from scratch. After decades of experience? No, I said gently. I expect you to add your experience to new tools, Your knowledge of markets combined with my AI systems will be unstoppable. Diana stood up, her voice trembling but determined. Teach me. I want to understand the blockchain systems you mentioned last night. I may not have seen this coming, but I'm not too proud to learn. That moment, watching my perfect, always put together sister humbly asking to learn, broke something open in my heart. This was what I had truly wanted all along, not victory, but partnership. First steps in a new world. The following week became what I privately called the Great Retraining. My father, true to his word, stepped into an advisory role. His decades of experience, now combined with fresh perspective, rather than rigid control. Marcus struggled the most. Watching him in the training sessions was both heartbreaking and inspiring. Here was a man who had managed billion-dollar portfolios, now struggling with basic coding concepts. But to his credit, he didn't quit. I don't understand this blockchain verification process, he admitted during one session, frustration evident in his voice. Let me show you, I said, pulling up a chair beside him. In that moment, we weren't rival siblings. We were just two people trying to understand something new together. Diana proved to be a natural with the new technology. Her attention to detail and social intelligence made her perfect for client relations in the digital age. She began revolutionizing how we handled high net worth clients, combining traditional personal service with cutting-edge digital tools. The most surprising transformation, however, was my father's, freed from the burden of ultimate responsibility. He began to see opportunities everywhere. What if we used your AI systems to analyze emerging markets in Africa? He suggested one morning. The traditional models are too slow to capture the rapid changes there. It was a brilliant idea, one he would have dismissed as too risky just months earlier. Breaking barriers, building bridges. 6 weeks into the transformation, we faced our first major test. A market crash that would have devastated the old Mitchell Investment Group hit on a Tuesday morning. In the old days, there would have been panic, frantic phone calls, and massive losses. But this time was different. My AI systems detected the anomaly 47 minutes before the major crash. We had already begun implementing protective measures when other firms were just realizing something was wrong. Marcus, using his deep understanding of market psychology combined with the AI's predictive capabilities, helped craft a strategy that not only protected our assets but positioned us to benefit from the recovery. That evening, he stood in my office, a look of awe on his face. We would have lost millions today with our old methods, he said quietly. Instead, we're ahead. My father joined us, a rare smile on his face. Your mother wants to have family dinner this Sunday. She says it's time we all sat at the same table without ... Well, without everything that used to happen. I looked around the office at Marcus studying the day's data with new understanding, at Diana laughing with the tech team, at my father looking more at peace than I'd ever seen him. The Mitchell legacy wasn't ending. It was just beginning its most important chapter. And for the first time, we were all writing it together. The symphony of new beginnings. The golden hues of the San Francisco sunset painted my office in warm, liquid light, casting long shadows that danced across the holographic displays. 6 months had passed since that fateful night at LeBlanc. 6 months that had transformed not just a company, but an entire family. I stood watching the city below, where lights began to twinkle like earthbound stars, each one telling a story of dreams and possibilities. Ms. Mitchell, Arya's voice broke the comfortable silence. The quarterly review is ready when you are. And your brother is on his way up with the final numbers. A gentle smile touched my lips. Thank you, Arya. Please prepare the main presentation room. The doors whispered open, and Marcus entered. But this was not the broken, desperate man who had stormed into my office months ago. This Marcus stood tall, his eyes clear and focused, a tablet in one hand and a confidence in his posture that came not from entitlement, but from earned knowledge. "Alex," he said, his voice warm with genuine respect. "The numbers are better than we projected. The AI-driven hedge fund we launched last month has already attracted $2 billion in new investments." I turned from the window, taking the tablet he offered. The numbers danced across the screen, green, vibrant, alive. "You've done excellent work with the client transition, Marcus. The way you integrated traditional portfolio management with our new systems. It's exactly what we needed." He smiled, a real and guarded smile that reached his eyes. I had a good teacher. Who would have thought I'd be learning about neural networks from my little sister? The reference to our childhood nickname, once used with condescension, now felt like an inside joke between allies. The transformation in Marcus had been the most profound to witness. He had started from the bottom, spending weeks with our tech teams, asking questions, making mistakes, and gradually building an understanding that merged his extensive market knowledge with cutting-edge technology. Where we belong. 1 year to the day after that explosive dinner at LeBlanc, I found myself standing before this same restaurant, but under dramatically different circumstances. This time, I wasn't sitting alone in a car, exiled and misunderstood. This time, I was walking in with my family, not as the disappointing daughter, but as the CEO who had led us all to new heights. Pierre greeted us with a warm, knowing smile. "The Mitchell family. Your table is ready." He led us not to the private dining room where our world had shattered and reformed, but to a beautiful round table in the main dining area, symbolically set for 4 equals. The soft glow of candlelight reflected in the polished silver, and through the windows, the lights of San Francisco glittered like a carpet of diamonds laid out just for us. We settled in, the conversation easy and light. We talked about work, yes, but also about Diana's new passion for sailing, about Marcus's plans to run his first marathon, about the books my father was finally finding time to read. We were no longer just business associates who happened to be related. We were a family who happened to run a business together. Halfway through the meal, my father raised his wine glass. "A toast," he said, his eyes misty. "To Alexandra, the daughter brave enough to walk away from everything to find herself, and generous enough to lead us all to where we needed to be." To Alexandra, Marcus and Diana echoed, their glasses raised high. I felt a lump form in my throat. "To all of us," I managed to say, "for being brave enough to change." As we clinked glasses, I remembered something my father had told me when I was very young. The strongest trees are the ones that learn to bend in the wind. We had all bent, some of us, nearly to breaking, but in doing so, we had discovered strengths we never knew we possessed. Later, as we enjoyed dessert, Marcus brought up an idea he'd been working on. "I've been thinking about our corporate social responsibility program. What if we created a foundation specifically to fund entrepreneurs from underserved communities? We could provide not just capital, but mentorship from our entire team." Diana's eyes lit up. "I love that. We could partner with community colleges and ... As they brainstormed, building on each other's ideas with an enthusiasm that would have been unimaginable a year ago. I sat back and watched them, my heart so full I thought it might burst. This was the true success. Not the billions under management, not the technological innovations, not the industry awards. This easy collaboration, this mutual respect, this genuine affection, this was the victory that mattered most. When the check came, we all reached for it at once, then laughed as our hands collided. "Let me get it," my father said. "It's the least I can do." The rebirth of a soul. The supple black leather of my father's Mercedes felt like a sheath of ice against my skin, a stark contrast to the simmering warmth of my own resolve. I sat alone in the cavernous silence of the car, a queen exiled from her own castle, watching the world move through a tinted glass veil. Outside, the glittering elite of San Francisco floated towards the grand, ornate entrance of LeBlanc, the city's most exclusive restaurant. Their laughter was a silent, distant symphony, their diamonds catching the light like frozen stars. Just 20 minutes ago, I had been part of that procession, the hem of my Chanel dress a garment that cost more than the average person's yearly solace whispering against the pavement. But I was not banished over a mere faux pas or a spilled glass of wine. No, my transgression was far more profound. I was exiled for the crime of being myself. "Wait in the car," my father had hissed, his voice a low, venomous whisper meant for my ears alone. His grip on my arm was not paternal, but proprietary, the grip of a man securing a volatile asset. "Alexandra, we need these investors. We cannot risk anything anything going wrong tonight." And by anything, he meant me. Alexandra Mitchell, the family's beautifully wrapped paradox, the daughter who had been given the keys to a gilded kingdom and had, instead, chosen to walk into the unknown wilderness to find her own soul. A phase, my mother had christened it, her voice dripping with a pity so cold it could frost glass. She come crawling back when reality bites, my brother, Marcus, had sneered, his confidence as unshakable as the family's stock portfolio. They had no idea that reality had not bitten me. I had tamed it. A soft chime broke the silence. My phone screen illuminated, casting a bluish glow on my face. 3 consecutive texts from my younger sister, Diana, each one a tiny, precise dagger. "How could you? You've humiliated us in front of everyone. The Kingstons are here. Dad is fighting for the firm's life, and you're off in your own selfish world, as usual. When will you ever grow up?" The last message didn't sting. It evoked a slow, deep smile. If only they knew, I thought, the irony tasting like the finest wine. If only they had the faintest clue who truly holds the reins of Kingston. Enterprises now? 5 years. It had been 5 years since I had walked out of the hallowed halls of Mitchell Investment Group, the prodigal daughter refusing her birthright. I didn't slam doors. I simply closed them behind me, the echo of my departure swallowed by the thick Persian rugs. With a trust fund, significantly smaller than my siblings, but carefully calculated, appeasement I had stepped into the void. My father called it a gambler's folly. I knew it was an architect's blueprint. My phone chimed again, a different, more serene tone reserved for one contact. My executive assistant, Elena. "The final acquisition papers for Kingston Enterprises are prepared and awaiting your signature. The board convenes in 30 minutes for the official vote. Your presence is requested. Where shall I tell them you are?" A calmness, profound and absolute, settled over me. This was the moment. The culmination of countless sleepless nights, of risks that would have given my father a heart attack, of a vision they had all dismissed as a cute little project. I met my own gaze in the rearview mirror. My eyes, once told they were too dreamy, too soft for the cutthroat world of finance, now held the steady, unyielding glint of polished steel. My father had a favorite mantra. In business, timing is everything. He was about to discover just how exquisite my timing had become. I opened the car door, the cool San Francisco air a baptism on my skin. I straightened the lines of my dress, a uniform as potent as any business suit. I was not the scolded teenager returning to beg forgiveness. I was the CEO arriving to claim her throne. The Mater d' Pierre, a man who had known me since I was a child trailing behind my parents, recognized me instantly. His professional mask slipped for a fraction of a second, revealing genuine surprise. "Miss Mitchell, a pleasure, as always. Your usual table by the window." Echoes from the past. The shockwave from my words seemed to freeze time itself in the opulent dining room. My mother's delicate hand, which had been trembling near her water glass, now clutched at the pearls around her neck as if they were a lifeline. Marcus's face contorted from disbelief into raw and eluded fury. "Discuss Mitchell Investment Group with you?" He spat, his voice cracking with the strain of his emotions. "Have you lost your mind completely? This is our birthright. This is Father's life's work. You don't get to waltz in here after years of gallivanting around with tech startups and pretend you have any say in our legacy. In that moment, as Marcus's words hung in the air like poison darts, a memory surfaced vivid and sharp, cutting through the tension of the present. Flashback 5 years earlier. The Mitchell family library smelled of old leather and ambition. I was 22, fresh from my MBA. My heart pounding with a vision I had meticulously crafted for months. I stood before my father's massive oak desk, a tablet in my hand displaying what I believed was the future. "Father," I began, my voice earnest, "I've analyzed our entire portfolio. We're overly exposed to traditional industries that are facing inevitable disruption. I prepared a transition strategy, a phased integration of blockchain for transaction transparency, AI-driven analytics for market prediction, and strategic investments in renewable energy and fintech. This isn't just an upgrade. It's a necessary evolution." My father hadn't even looked up from the financial reports he was reviewing. "Alexandra, we are not a Silicon Valley playground. We are stewards of wealth. The methods that built this firm will sustain it. But the world is changing," I insisted, my passion overriding my caution. "Look at the data. Within a decade, algorithmic trading will dominate. Digital assets will redefine ownership. If we don't adapt, we'll become irrelevant." It was then that Marcus, who had been lounging by the fireplace, chimed in with a condescending chuckle. "Listen to her, Dad, little Lexi and her internet money. It's adorable, really. Why don't you leave the big decisions to those of us who understand real finance?" The memory was a fresh wound, even after all these years. The dismissal, the patronizing amusement, the absolute certainty that my vision was nothing but a child's fantasy. A new dawn. The contrast between that lonely office and the opulent Versailles room was staggering. I looked at my father, his question still hanging in the air. "How did you do all this alone?" "I wasn't alone, Father," I said, my voice gaining a new, softer strength. "I had the most powerful partners imaginable: necessity, innovation, and the unwavering belief that the future I saw was real. While you were all offering me a place back in your world, I was building my own." I turned to Richard Kingston. "The papers, Richard." He nodded, and with a steady hand, he signed the final acquisition documents on the spot, transferring controlling interest of Kingston Enterprises to AM Holdings. The scratch of the pen was the only sound in the room. It was done. I stood up, placing my palms on the cool surface of the mahogany table, leaning forward slightly. The gesture was not aggressive, but it was dominant. It commanded attention. The offer to discuss Mitchell Investment Group's future is not an offer to assimilate it into my empire as a trophy, I stated, my voice clear and resonant. It is an offer of renewal. It is a chance to shed the skin of the past and emerge stronger, relevant, and truly legacy-worthy. But this offer comes with non-negotiable conditions. I looked at each of them in turn: my proud father, my socialite mother, my arrogant brother, my conflicted sister, total transparency, complete technological overhaul, and a meritocracy where ideas are valued based on their potential, not on the seniority of the person who voices them. The silence that followed was different from before. The shock was beginning to settle, making way for the slow, daunting dawn of a new reality. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but for the first time in that room, the future felt alive with possibility instead of heavy with the past. The dynasty had not ended. It was being reborn. The first crack in the wall. Marcus stared at the holographic data, the glowing lines reflecting in his wide, tired eyes. It was one thing to hear about his sister's success in the abstract. It was another to see the cold, hard, undeniable evidence of it dwarfing everything his family had built. "Remember when I was 16? I began, my gaze drifting from the data to the panoramic view of the bay, and I presented my first investment thesis to Dad. I had spent my entire summer vacation researching emerging markets in Southeast Asian tech, I'd built a whole predictive model on my laptop. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair. That was a lifetime ago, Alex. We were kids. No, I corrected him gently. You were the heir apparent, already being groomed to take the throne. I was the dreamer with her head in the clouds. When I suggested we allocate, even a small percentage of the fund too, explore these new frontiers, Dad shut me down before I could finish my sentence. You laughed and called it my cute little project. The memory was a sharp, precise incision. I saw the recognition flash in Marcus's eyes, followed by a flicker of shame. He did remember. When I warned the board about the coming impact of decentralized finance, you all dismissed it as a fringe movement for anarchists. When I advocated for investing in AI-driven analytics, you called it a cost center with no proven ROI. I paused, letting the weight of those missed opportunities settle between us. So yes, I left. But I didn't leave to destroy the family business. I left to build something that could survive the future you all refused to see. The door to my office opened again, more quietly this time. Diana stood there, hesitantly. She had changed out of her evening gown into a sharp business dress, but her face was pale, her eyes puffy. She took in the scene Marcus's defeated posture. The glowing holograms, me standing calmly behind my desk. This is incredible, Alex, she said, her voice barely a whisper as her eyes scanned the high-tech office. I had no idea. I mean, the news articles don't do it justice. Come in, Diana, I said. We were just discussing the future. She joined Marcus, the two of them sitting side by side on the visitor's couch, looking like lost children in this temple of technology I had built. The dynamic was shifting. The united front they had always presented was crumbling. First, I said, deactivating the performance charts and pulling up a new visualization of complex, beautiful neural network of EM Holdings global operations. Let me show you what real innovation looks like. This isn't just about making money. It's about creating systems that are adaptive, resilient, and intelligent. I was so focused on preserving what my father built, he continued, his eyes glistening, that I became a caretaker of a museum instead of an architect of the future. I was so busy trying to force you all into the roles I had chosen for you that I couldn't see the potential. Right in front of me, his voice broke slightly. I couldn't see what you could become. Diana stood up, her face a mask of confusion. What are you saying, Dad? I'm saying ... double quotes. He took a deep, shuddering breath, turning to include all of us in his gaze. That Mitchell Investment Group doesn't need a caretaker. It needs a visionary. It needs Alexandra. He looked back at me, his expression one of surrender and, for the first time, respect. Not as an adversary, but as its leader. Marcus shot to his feet. What? But on the managing director. The succession plan was built for a world that no longer exists. My father cut him off, his voice regaining a sliver of its old authority. Look around you, Marcus. Your sister didn't just inherit a throne. She built her own kingdom from the ground up. She turned a modest trust fund into this. He gestured around the penthouse office. Meanwhile, our firm is hemorrhaging clients and relevance by the day. My pride, my stubbornness ... almost cost us everything. The room fell silent. The final pillar of the old regime had not been toppled by force, but had chosen to lay down its crown. I pressed a button on my desk, darkening the windows and activating the large main screen. A new presentation appeared, titled simply, The Mitchell Transformation. Let me show you the way forward, I said, my heart swelling with a complex mix of triumph, relief, and a profound, newfound compassion for my family. But understand, the path ahead requires more than just a change of leadership. It requires a change of heart from everyone in this room. I saw the fear in Marcus's eyes, the uncertainty in Diana's, and the weary acceptance in my father's. The battle was over. The real work, the work of healing and rebuilding, was finally beginning. Remember your first week in the coding boot camp? I teased gently. You threatened to throw your laptop out the window. He laughed, a rich, genuine sound I hadn't heard from him in years. That feels like a lifetime ago. Now I'm helping design the next iteration of our trading algorithms. If you had told me 6 months ago that I'd be excited about machine learning parameters. We were interrupted by Diana's arrival, her energy filling the room before she even spoke. You to have to see this, she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. The client feedback from the new blockchain transparency portal is incredible. The Millers just committed another $50 million, specifically citing the real-time audit trail feature. She joined us at the window, the three Mitchell siblings standing together, not as rivals, but as partners. Diana had found her calling in what we now call the human element, using technology to enhance, not replace, personal relationships. Her natural empathy combined with the data insights from our systems had revolutionized how we served our clients. Dad will be so proud, she said softly, looking at the city lights. He's downstairs, you know? Been working with the research team all day on that African markets project he suggested. The mention of our father warmed something in my chest. His transformation had been the quietest, but in many ways, the most significant. Freed from the weight of leadership, he had rediscovered his love for pure analysis, for seeing patterns where others saw chaos. His experience had become our secret weapon, the wisdom that guided our innovation. Shall we go down? I suggested. The quarterly review awaits. As we walked toward the elevator, Marcus touched my arm lightly. Alex, I never properly thanked you for your patience, for seeing something in me that I couldn't see myself. I met his gaze, seeing the brother I remembered from childhood, before competition and expectations had built walls between us. You did the hard work, Marcus. I just opened the door. The elevator descended smoothly, and when the doors opened on the presentation floor, the scene that greeted us took my breath away. The legacy reborn. The main presentation hall had been transformed. Where once there had been sterile white walls and traditional projection screens, now there swirled interactive holographic displays, showing real-time data streams from across the globe. But what made my breath catch was the people filling the room. There, sitting side by side, were employees from both the old Mitchell Investment Group and AM Holdings. The initial tension and suspicion had melted away, replaced by the easy camaraderie of people working toward a common goal. In one corner, Sarah Chen, one of my original architects, was deep in conversation with Robert Fitzgerald, who had been with my father's firm for 30 years. They were sketching out something on a shared digital canvas, their faces alight with the excitement of discovery. My father stood at the center of it all, holding court with a group of young analysts. He was animated, gesturing with hands that no longer trembled with stress, but with enthusiasm. As we approached, I caught his words. And that's why we can't just rely on the algorithms, he was saying. The numbers tell you what, but experience tells you why. When you've seen as many market cycles as I have, you develop a gut feeling for when something doesn't smell right. One of the young analysts nodded eagerly. So you're saying the AI gives us the pattern recognition, but we provide the contextual wisdom. Exactly. My father beamed, looking up and spotting us. Here are my children, the dreamers who made all this possible. The pride in his voice was unmistakable, unconditional. It was a tone I hadn't heard since I was a little girl showing him a painting I'd made. Shall we begin? I asked, moving to the central platform. As I took my place, the room quieted, but the energy remained electric, hopeful. I looked out at the faces before me. This beautiful mosaic of past and future, tradition and innovation. 6 months ago, I began. My voice clear and steady in the quiet room. We stood at a crossroads. One path led to the slow, comfortable decline of clinging to what had always worked. The other led into the unknown, into innovation, adaptation, and yes, some discomfort. I paused, letting my gaze sweep across the room. making eye contact with individuals I had come to know and respect. You all chose the unknown. And look what we've built together. With a gesture, I activated the main display, a stunning visual representation of our new entity, Mitchell Innovation. Group prepared, showing not just financial growth, but innovation metrics, client satisfaction scores, employee engagement levels, and social impact measurements. Our assets under management have grown by 150%, I continued. But more importantly, our innovation index, which measures how much of our portfolio is invested in future-forward technologies, has gone from 3% to 68%. We've created 37 new patents. We've launched an incubator that's mentoring the next generation of entrepreneurs. As I spoke, different team members stood to present their sections. Marcus on the integrated trading systems, Diana on client experience transformation, my father on the emerging markets initiative. Each presentation was a testament to how far we had come, not just as a company, but as a family of professionals learning from each other. When it was my turn to conclude, I found myself momentarily speechless, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what we had accomplished together. You know, I said finally, my father taught me that in business, timing is everything. But what I've learned these past months is that timing isn't just about markets and opportunities. It's about people being ready to change, ready to grow. I looked at my family, my father nodding with quiet wisdom, Marcus standing tall with hard-earned confidence, Diana glowing with purpose. We thought we were saving a company, but what we were really doing was rediscovering each other. We weren't just transforming business models. We were healing relationships. The room was utterly silent, every person caught in the truth of those words. And the most beautiful part, I smiled, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. This is only the beginning. The applause started slowly, then built into a thunderous wave of sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. But as I looked out at the cheering faces, I realized the foundation that had truly been shaken and rebuilt was the one between U.S. Mitchells. Later that evening, as the last of the team members had departed and the four of us stood alone in the quiet office, my father placed a hand on my shoulder. Your grandfather would be so proud, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Not because of the numbers or the growth, but because of this, he gestured between the four of us. He always said the true measure of a legacy isn't the wealth you accumulate, but the relationships you build. Marcus nodded, coming to stand beside me. He was right. Though I have to say, the wealth we're accumulating now is pretty impressive too. We all laughed, the sound echoing through the spacious office, a melody of reconciliation and hope. Can do. No, I insist, Marcus countered. You've done enough for us all. In the end, we split it 4 ways, a small, symbolic gesture of our new equality. As we stepped out into the cool night air, my phone buzzed with an incoming message. It was from Richard Kingston, along with a news alert. Mitchell Innovation Group had just been named Most Innovative Financial Firm of the Year, beating out competitors twice our size. I showed the phone to my family, and we shared a quiet moment of pride, standing together on the sidewalk where I had once sat alone in a car, wondering if I would ever find my place. Now I knew. Our place wasn't in a particular building or a specific role. Our place was together, learning, growing, challenging each other, and building something that mattered. My father put his arm around my shoulders as we walked to our cars. You know, he said quietly, I used to lie awake at night worrying about the legacy I would leave you all. Now I sleep peacefully, knowing the legacy you're building together is far greater than anything I could have imagined. I leaned my head against his shoulder, the way I had as a little girl. We learned from the best, Dad. The night sky above us was clear, scattered with stars that had witnessed countless beginnings and endings. But as I looked at my family, really looked at them, I knew that some endings are actually beautiful beginnings in disguise. Some victories aren't about proving others wrong, but about helping them find what's right. Some revolutions aren't fought with weapons, but with wisdom. And the most powerful legacy isn't what you build for your family, but what you build with them. As I got into my car, I knew I wasn't just driving home. I was driving toward a future bright with possibility, surrounded by the people who had once pushed me away but had now welcomed me home. Not to the home I left, but to the home we had built together. Piece by piece, truth by truth, victory by shared victory. And in that moment, I understood that the greatest success isn't measured in dollars or dominance, but in the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you are exactly where you belong, with exactly who you belong with, building exactly what you were always meant to build.